So, index card number 14, and the prompt is leaves. So I think leaves, trees, and instantly I think about fall. And so I pulled out some jelly prints in kind of fall colors, and I pulled this background that had some smooshing where I cleaned up some leftover paint, and I'm just going to add a little bit more. I just kind of want the tealy color because I'm thinking I'm going to go kind of with these oranges and reds, and I want to kind of go complementary color scheme. That's what I've got going on in my head. I've pulled some leaf stencils and some tree masks. Not sure where I'm going, but so I'm finding I'm a little bit too much in my head. So I am going to stop that and basically just get started, and we'll see where this takes us. And I find that's one of the best things you can do if you're finding that you're overthinking things. Just move. Get started. So I'm just going to do some more smooshing here. I do not have a plan. I just want to get kind of an interesting, quick background in there, and just going to stop and dry periodically. And that's how you're going to build layers. You got to stop every once in a while and just build layers. You could use your Liquitex Basics, any kind of paint, any kind of acrylic paint that you want. You could use your gelatos, and it just didn't need quite so much paint. Okay, suddenly I'm liking what I see here. This is quite nice to me, so I'm just going to do that. And since I like this color combination, I'm just going to grab an ATC that I have here. And get some color onto that. Uses up the paint and gives me the start of something else. So, quick and easy. So I decided to go with this tree mask, and I'm going to position this here. I also have the stencil piece. Now this was cut with my friend's Cricut. But you could paint on a tree on your own. So I'm just going to position this and then trace it out with the plans of then painting it in a dark brown, black kind of silhouette. I want to see some of the sky peeking through the less than full tree because it is fall, it is autumn. So I do trace with my Stabilo, and then I do go afterwards with my micron pen. And I just want a line around this so I know roughly where to paint with the acrylic paint afterwards. I switched to the micron because the Stabilo wasn't giving me a fine enough edge, and I was afraid I was going to lose some of the detail and the crispness of it, but in the end it really didn't matter. You could just do this with a pencil, but I wanted to be able to see it dark enough and not get confused about which part I was painting out. So I'm just mixing a brown and a black and a little bit of water, and I'll be using a round brush, a fine round brush. And I'm choosing with this one to stick to all acrylic active paint so that I don't have to deal with things reactivating. I absolutely love that smooshed background. It's a great way, this card, the background would have been great for an under the sea, any kind of picture where you have sky. It's just absolutely lovely. If the paint gets a little too gloopy, I know that's not a word, but it is for art, I just thin it with a little bit of water. But you have to be careful that you don't thin it too much because I want this to be opaque. I want it to cover the color that's underneath. Before deciding on this tree mask, I had different leaf stencils and things, and I kind of went from one to the other, and very much in my head. And I'm not sure if I edited that out, but when I do that, I think the best thing to do is just get going. Start moving. As soon as I get in the act of creating, I find inspiration comes to me. And because I have all this black paint, I'm just going to edge it at this stage of the game. And that sometimes helps. If you do it earlier on, you may have to reapply it later, as I do, but it also helps you see what it looks like. It gives you a better picture of the finished project. So when deciding, I pulled out all my jelly prints, and then after cutting it out, I decided to go with this one jelly print. It has the teals and the blues and the orange and gold and red. It has all the varieties, and here's some close-ups of it. It was an absolutely lovely jelly print that works so perfectly for this background. I'm always amazed when things just work out so incredibly well. So a quick way when you're cutting, if you fold the paper into 2 or 3 and then cut once and then you have several. I wasn't too careful. I just went for different sizes, different shapes. And now I'm just going to adhere this on with gel medium. And I'm stopping every once in a while to see what I have. I want to build layers with these leaves, but the goal is to have an autumn tree, so it isn't going to be fully covered. The blue that was in that jelly print, I don't know that I ever would have, if I was painting these leaves, I don't know whether I would have ever put blue in there, but it works so incredibly well. Autumn, fall is my favorite season, I think. Well, I was born in October. I bought both of my houses in October. I was married in October. It's a special time of the year for me, and I've always loved fall. Growing up on the prairies, the wheat fields, the golden wheat fields, just always, and the changing of the leaves. And now I live in a place where I'm going to be able to enjoy a much longer, extended fall with a lot more changing of the leaves. So now that I'm happy with the canopy, the tree canopy that I've created with the leaves, I'm going to do some shading using the floating technique with acrylic paint. And I'm choosing acrylic paint again because I don't want to deal with something reactivating later on. And I just think it would be a little too fussy to use the Stabilo oil pencil here, but you can do that. You can use watercolor pencils. I will put a link to the technique tag video that I show the different ways of shading and highlighting, including a step-by-step of the floating technique, which I'm using now. This is a technique that I learned when I did folk art painting on wood. And while I may be playing fast and loose with the exact ways of doing it, I'm not necessarily paying attention to the light source. I'm just going by instinct about what looks good. And I have a baby wipe off to the side to take off any paint that I quickly that it doesn't look quite right in my eye. I'm just give each of the leaves a little bit more so they stand up amongst each other. I tend to go with the floating technique if I want to put it on top of the focal point as opposed to on the outside, where you're more outlining it, if that makes sense. So here the shading is going right on the leaves, not behind the leaves. But this looked perfectly well even if I had skipped this step. So if this isn't something you feel comfortable with, you can skip this step and have something lovely. If you're going to make a color paper specific to cutout leaves, I would use the brayering technique, and I'll give you a link to that technique tag video. It would make a nice textured leaf, and then use the orange, red, gold, brown, and add a little bit of blue, add a little bit of green in there, and create your own colored paper that will work perfectly for this. So if you don't have that perfect piece of paper, you can take and create it very quickly and easily. So there I just have to reapply a little bit of the black edging where a leaf went over the edge. And I splattered with copper metallic paint. It really fits the theme. I went with copper because it has a little more orange tone than the gold. The gold would have worked fine. Went through my stash of pre-printed out quotes and phrases and words. Found this one that says transformed, and I thought, okay, this is just perfect. It is on deli paper, so you're still going to be able to see some of that blue. And I thought, thinking the transformed goes so well with, you know, the autumn leaves get transformed into color. And so here are some close-ups of the finished index card. And you can see how lovely those leaves worked with those jelly prints. Love that smooshed background. The key really is drawing it in between, so you don't end up with it very monotone. Thanks for watching. We'll see you for day 15.